Hello everyone, welcome back to Abba and Abba, and I am G, and I'm so glad that you're here with me again. For anyone who's joining us for the first time and you don't know much about what I am, what I'm doing here, I'd encourage you to watch my previous videos, and I'll link some of them below in the description box. So today I would love to share a story that's very dear to my heart. In fact, my son, who's 11, he was actually the one who was like, "Mom, have you shared about your NICU stories on your channel?" And I said, "Well, I haven't." And so I wrote it down as one of the things that I would share about. And it's really one of those things that for the rest of my life, I think I will always go back to it as a pointer to where God really touched my heart to see things differently as a child of God. And so I'll take you back to 2016. In 2016, I had my first girl. Our son was born in 2013. And he was born, vaginal delivery in the hospital. He was just a day shy of his due date, right? And he was about 6 pounds and some ounces, maybe 12 ounces. And so he wasn't that big of a baby, but from that moment on, he started adding on the weight and he grew very quickly. So by 2016, when we had our second child, but our first daughter, she was born at 31 weeks. And at that point, nothing prepared me for that. I had preeclampsia. It was really sudden. I went to church. Then from church, an ambulance took me to the hospital because a security guard, which actually she was God sent, she saw me walking out of church with my husband and she's like, "You're not going anywhere. You have to come back. I'm getting an ambulance." And literally the hospital was like 3 minutes from the church. And so I got to the hospital, and of course, even in the ambulance, they saw my blood pressure was really up, and so they were not it wasn't just going to be like, "Okay, you're good to go, it's false alarm." They took me straight to the hospital. When I got there, I don't remember all the details, but I'll try. I remember they gave me a shot, a steroid that would help the baby in case they had to bring her out, and then just to help her lungs, her breathing if she came out early. At that point, she was 30 and some days. She would be born 4 days later at exactly 31 weeks. And when she was born, she was about 2 pounds and probably about 13 ounces. And so the only issue that the doctors had, when she was born is she's small for her gestational age. For 31 weeker, she should be a little bit bigger, but she had no complications, nothing arose throughout her 6 weeks in the NICU. But there was something that I noticed about who I was back then, and the mother that I was then felt very guilty, very ashamed, just felt that I did something wrong because she's supposed to come on her due date. And in fact, I love numbers so much. I love names and numbers. So her due date was July 7th. And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect. Yeah." But then God had even a better number for her. I mean, every number that we are born with is great. But her birth date happened to be 5/5. And I was like, well, can't even ask for a better number. But at that time, I didn't like it. I really hated the process of being in the NICU. Honestly, I didn't even understand much of the procedures that were done, just normal procedures. But my mind was just, I wish we would be out of this place, and I didn't understand why God would let me go through that. So I felt I must have done something wrong to have gotten me to that place that my daughter is here, instead of in my womb. In fact, one thing that I didn't like was that my tummy was getting flat, because I was like, I want to still be pregnant, So even when she came home, it still wasn't her due date, right? She was about 37 weeks. And I was still feeling like, oh my goodness, I should be a pregnant woman. So the years following that, it's another story, so I won't touch into that. But God really was taking me on this journey of understanding who I am in Him, and the journey of a believer really is an adventure. So, but my own kind of adventure at that time in 2016 was not going into the NICU. That felt like torture, and it felt like an attack. It just didn't feel like, believers walk. And so, fast forward 2020, we have another child. And she's our second daughter, well, third. And she's born at 25 weeks. And so the amazing thing, I shared this story in a class that I was at church this last year, 2023. And when I shared it, this lady that was listening, she was like, oh my goodness, I want you to come and, share your story on my podcast. So I did. So I'll link that below because I might miss some things or I add more here than I did there. But basically, there was such a huge lesson that I learned in just that 4 years of seeing who I was in 2016 that had a 31-weeker. And I spent 6 weeks in the NICU with her. And then fast forward 4 years later, I'm the same woman, but I'm really not the same woman. You know what I mean? Like, you look the same, but on the inside, God has been doing a major work, and He's still doing a major work, right? We can all relate to that. So 2020, I am in a NICU, and I remember, now this story won't be complete if I don't tell you the full story, which I haven't shared with, I think, my children have heard it 1,000 times. My husband has heard it 1,000,000 times. My sister, I think I showed my oldest sister once, but most people don't know the story. 2018, I have this dream, and from 2015 here on out, I noticed that God gives me dreams quite often, like at least once in 6 months. I'll notice that, this is a God dream, and I need to pay attention to it. So 2018, January 31st, I have this dream. Actually, January 29th. Yeah, it's in my journal. But January 29th, 2018, I have this dream. And in this dream, I see 2 babies. Well, first of all, I'm about to go into this room, and I know that I have newborn babies, and I know that I haven't fed them. And so I'm afraid that, they're dead because I haven't fed newborn babies. And so I step into the room and I look into the crib, and all they have on is diapers, the 2 babies. And there's one who's considerably smaller than the other. And so I pick up the one who's smaller because I see they're both breathing, and I nurse that baby, and I put that baby down and pick up the older, I'm ahead of myself. I pick up the bigger one. And so when I pick up the bigger one, I wake up. And so the end, when I woke up from that dream, I was very perplexed, like, God, what is this? I think I feed my children. Why am I having a dream? Anyways, the interpretation of that dream was so far from what I thought it was. But a couple of days later, this was February of 2018, I remember asking God, because my mind was just blowing with like thoughts of, God, is this real? Are you going to give me 2 babies? All that. And I like having a big family, so I was like, so I wasn't, afraid of 2 more babies because we had 2 already, right, in 2018. So I just remember just saying, like, God, if this is you and you're literally talking about babies, like human beings that are coming to my house, then you will give me names. And that night, I heard 2 names, and they were male names. And the meaning of the name, the first name said Yahweh, Yahweh supports. And the second name, the meaning was Yahweh strengthens or heals. And so I took those names to mean that God was saying He's going to give me 2 boys. So from that day onward, I just was telling my husband, I was like, God's going to give us more children, and 2 boys and twins. And I was excited because I was like, anyways, 2019 February, I finally, I'm a lot in my thoughts. So I finally write my thoughts down on this issue. And the issue was, I had told God, I would love to have a girl. And so I said, I'm really grateful that someday you're going to give me these 2 boys that you said. But for now, can I just let you know that I have strong faith, the same faith I have that you're going to give me these 2 boys is the same faith you're going to give me the girl that I also want. But I don't want to be pregnant too many times. So I already know you're going to give me twin boys. So I'm just asking you put a girl in there. So I was asking God for 3, okay? Yeah. So I told God this because I was just like, look, I know you can do it. Like, he already knows. I think there's some things that he's like, my energy, pipe it down. But I didn't share with anybody, again, just my husband, of course, because I need him. God needs him. We all need him. Anyway, so I didn't share it with other people because I just felt like this is something that God's going to do. So when we did finally get pregnant in August of 2019, nobody could have told me otherwise. I knew in my heart that I was pregnant with triplets. And I had horrible morning sickness. I never had morning sickness with my other 2. In fact, my son, our first, what is morning sickness? Like, I was glowing, I was happy, I was strong. My daughter was tired and, I noticed hunger pangs, but that was it. With this, I was always nauseous, always hungry, feeling like I haven't eaten in 10 years, like just full-blown pregnancy issues. So I was like, well, I'm cooking 3 babies in there. Right? So I was happy. My husband was just like, this lady. He was hoping that it was not true. So anyways, we went to the sonogram at about 12 weeks, and I come to find out only 1 baby. And I was shocked. But then I've been immersing myself in YouTube videos. Again, I love YouTube. So I've been watching people talk about how, the doctor said, sonogram showed only 2, but we actually had 3. The sonogram showed 1, but we actually had 2. Like, all of that fun stuff, right? That we can get ourselves busily distracted in. So I was just like, look, I'm just going to do what I know God has already promised me. He's already said 2, and I told him I believe him for another, so it's 3. So I'm gonna just stick with that. And again, I felt like, it's one of those things where in faith walk, right? You can see a reality of there's only 1, but you can be like, well, I don't walk by faith. I don't walk by sight. I walk by faith, right? So I was really sticking to what I knew God had said to me, which is 2 male names. And then I had said a girl. In fact, I had read this book, and it was talking about how to take care of your pregnancy if you have multiples, not twins, like 3 and above. And her strategy was so different from anything else that I'd heard before. So I was even like implementing those things, which was basically that eat as much as you can. Don't eat for 1 or don't eat for 2 because you're carrying multiples. And basically at the end of the day, at about 2nd trimester and 3rd, you really don't have even the energy or the space to eat. So just store up basically. So I felt like with my nausea and all of that, I was still trying to eat more than I normally would. And so baby girl was born at 25 weeks. And when she was born, actually I'll go back 2 days before she was born, I had another dream. And in this dream, I saw myself just staring at this beautiful baby, and she wasn't a newborn. She was about maybe 4 months or more, because she was big and she had lots of hair. And then I noticed patches of skin on her cheeks. And, when I woke up, I thought, freckles, so I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, so I was about to nurse her in this dream, but I didn't. I just woke up. Right. And so I remember texting my mom and said, oh, I saw baby girl. And, my mom and I have been going back and forth with the name because, I'm not Yoruba, my husband is. So I was like, oh, this name and that name. Anyways, point is, when she was born at exactly 25 weeks, I remember looking at her and I was telling God, I said, oh my goodness, she's so tiny because she was 1 pound and 10 ounces. And then, of course, like most babies, she dropped even some. So she had to regain her birth weight. And so I remember looking at her and saying, God, she's really tiny. Like, I don't know what to do, with this baby. Like, it just felt scary in that moment of seeing her. And God was like, well, you already know what she looks like months from now. Like, you saw yourself holding a baby that's months old. She's healthy, she's chubby, right? And you were home, you were about to nurse her. So that's the picture you should have in your mind as you go through this journey. Now, because I like faith in God, of course, I like to push it a little bit. So I'm like, God, my older daughter was here for 6 weeks and it was the same exact hospital. My older daughter was here for 6 weeks. This baby, let's say, highest, maximum, 8 weeks. Like, you can just speed this thing up. I think God was looking at me like, I'm not speeding anything up, right? And so anyway, she was there for 16 weeks. And so it was probably about I hadn't been discharged from the hospital. So 3 days into her being born, I was still in the hospital. And that morning I was, again, just my questions with God. And I was like, why am I here again? Like, I was here 4 years ago in the NICU. And why am I here again? And it was in that moment that I was given the eyes to see how when you saw two babies, it was your older daughter and your younger daughter. Now, the older one was already born, right? She was born in 2016 and had that dream in 2018. But he was showing me that I was going to have an identical situation happen as I saw two babies, and they were newborn. And when my babies were born, the only thing they could put them in, like it couldn't swaddle them like a newborn baby. They only had diapers for two of them when they were born. And so he was showing me how basically for the older one, she was born 31 weeks and he was our support because there wasn't much to be done, just to see her grow and feed and all of that. But with this second one, he was going to be our strength, which by the time he was telling me this, I didn't know how much of strength we would need, myself, my husband, children, the baby in the NICU. Like, we'd all rely on the strength of God, like even in more power than we knew and had ever experienced, right? So it was then I was looking at my life and going, oh my goodness, my interpretation was two babies, twins. And then I told you I wanted a girl. Because again, when I found out I was having a girl about 21 weeks into it, sonogram, I thought, God, this is very weird. You told me you're giving me boys. I'm the one who asked you for a girl. So why are you giving me a girl? In God's own beautiful amazement of who he is, he didn't stop me from dreaming that, because honestly, I can see his hand even through the pregnancy. The fact that I thought I was carrying 3 babies, I was really meticulous that I must eat. If I knew that it was just one, my hunger pangs would just subside because the nausea was too much, right? That I was like, no, I have to eat for 3 babies, And so, interesting enough, he used that mindset because by the time she was born, remember my son was born full term and he was 6 pounds. Second one was born at 30 weeks and the doctors were like, she's small, she's 2-pounder. This one was born 25 weeks and she's a 1-pounder and 11 ounces. And they're like, she's great. Like, her weight is amazing. So of course for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, it was all worth it. And literally this baby was the biggest baby that I brought home. My son was about still, under 7 pounds when he came home 3 days later. My older daughter was about 5 pounds some when she came home 6 weeks later. This baby spent 16 weeks in the NICU and she came home 8 pounds some. And so she really was the chubby baby that I saw and I was nursing. And so I'd like to share that story because, again, I think I'll come back to another NICU story days of what happened in the NICU and the stories that I learned, the blessing of being in there. But for today, I just want to end there because for the first time in my life, I realized that God, because it's one thing when you read stories in the Bible, when you read stories in the Bible, you're like, you know what, yeah, God knew that David would kill the bear, kill the lion, and then Goliath would be there, that's fantastic. It's just stories. But until you live out your own Christian journey, understanding that you're a story in God's hands, right? And he doesn't always let the bear and the lion run away when they see you. It's not like David was like, I saw a bear and it ran away when it saw me. I saw a lion and it ran away. And the same thing, I'm gonna stand and Goliath's gonna run. No, instead he's like, I had to wrestle with the lion, and next time the bear came again. So sometimes in our Christian journey, God isn't going to avert danger. He's not going to take away the storm. In fact, he's going to push us into the same place where we'll be like, wait, this is fire. Why am I here? But then he knows he's going to be right there with you, right? Like the Hebrew boys. I tell you, that was when my faith arose, just to know that, okay, so 2 years before this happened, you cared enough to tell me, not because you wanted me to pray against it, like you were like, I'm letting you know beforehand that I'm going to be your strength, and I'm going to be the strength of everyone involved. And in fact, I'm going to be the healer, because when a baby is 1 or 25 weeks, you can't even massage them, like a baby, no, she can't. Because they're supposed to be in your tummy, right? They're not supposed to be, having some rubbing going on. They just press on your womb, the walls. So the fragileness of how, she was, and all the, if I had pictures, I'll try and figure out how to put it. But if I don't, anyways. But just seeing her, and she was intubated, which meant that there was this huge machine that was really loud beside her bed, the crib, and it was the breathing apparatus. It was a huge machine just to help her, aid her lungs to breathe, and it would vibrate, So it wasn't fun, but because I knew by day 3 going into it that, oh my goodness, God already he told me about this 2 years ago, and he was even more gracious to show me her 2 days before she was born, that she's going to be fine. It got me in that place of just saying, God, you're so kind. Because I couldn't think of any other words just to say that you didn't have to. People go through stuff and then they're like, oh my goodness, why am I going through this? Which was me 4 years prior. But at this point, I was like, oh my goodness, you wanted me to know, that you're going to be... I was just a different woman, a more peaceful woman. Yes, there are moments where, and I think that would go into the next, video that I do, NICU. But there are moments where I knew this is war. There are moments where I knew that this kind of war is forgiveness war. There are moments, it was just this calmness that I had from the inside out, of just saying, God, I know that this is a journey of faith. Me being in this NICU with this baby, it's not even about this baby. Literally, I'm looking at her, I'm like, God has already sorted you. You're married, your children, your businesswoman. I was like, God has already sorted you. The issue right now is me. That will I stand and believe that God is who he says he is? And did he say he's going to be your strength? He's going to be our strength. And that's what it is. So I just want to encourage you, because you might be going through something right now that you're like, God, why didn't you take this away? Because again, you can read scripture all day, all night, and sometimes it doesn't really register until you also walk through the shadow of death, and then you're like, you know what? Thank you, because now the scriptures are even coming more alive in me, because there are times that even like Jesus, right? He didn't avert that Jesus would go on the cross. But how many of us know that if you see an innocent man on the cross, you're like, where's the justice in God, But then God is like, that's justice right there. So I pray that you will see your life as really God taking you on this journey, and trust him. I'm still on the journey, and I'm like, God, help me to trust you, So I know it's not easy, but I know that the best place to be is daily wake up with him, commune with him, enjoy him even when you don't understand him. Like literally you can write in your journey, God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I trust you. Like, and even if I don't even trust you, help me to trust you. You know, like just be real and raw with him during your seasons, your ups and your lows, you know. And so I pray that this encourages you, that you don't feel abandoned by God because you're going through a hard situation. And even if you're like me, where 4 years prior to that, I didn't see what God was doing, and you're also in a space where you don't see what God is doing, I pray that you will still be encouraged by what I just shared, that just keep growing with him, and you'll be amazed who you are becoming, so that when other challenges come, right, when our children are only learning ABC, it's not that challenging, right? Now it's at their level, right? But when they start 5th grade work, it's on a different level. And someone who's on 3rd grade work is looking at the 5th grade work saying, oh my goodness, I don't think I could ever, attain to that faith, like in our walk with God. But just keep growing with God. Literally keep taking the classes every day, showing up to the Holy Spirit's lessons. And by 5th grade, he'll give you the same test that 5th graders take. And you'll be looking and saying, oh my goodness. Now, you may not get 100%, but you're far from where you were at 3rd grade, right? So I just feel like that's how this journey is, that don't compare yourself, because God knew in 2016, he knew 2020 woman was coming. So he wasn't like, oh my goodness, this manager doesn't get it. It's me. You're okay, right? And your daughter is going to be big and strong and healthy. Again, just trust God. Be in the Word daily. Listen to his voice. Be encouraged by other people on YouTube and other mediums. It really is. If you have time, just spend time, at least 1 hour a day, and just listen to someone encourage you on YouTube or any other channel, podcast. Because there's so much of what God is doing in all of our lives that it will bless you, it will lift you, it will encourage you. Even last night I was reading something and I was just like, God, how did you know that I would need to read this? So the wisdom is out there, and I just pray that you'll just stay on this journey, stay on the journey. Let the Holy Spirit guide you, lead you. Don't give up when you don't understand. And that's going to be all for now. God bless you. And until next time, I pray that you just stay with the Master, okay?